The light screen was on the verge of collapsing. You must break the seal immediately and use the force of its collapse to surround both our bodies. Then, rush out as fast as possible, Wang Lin said, looking at the blurry figure outside the light screen, before suddenly sending a voice transmission to the Sea Child Heavenly Venerable. The Sea Child Heavenly Venerable fell silent for a moment before softly acknowledging with a sound. Wang Lin took a deep breath, involuntarily inhaling some of the fragrant air exhaled by the Sea Child. Yet at this moment, he could not help but adapt, as a cold glint flickered in his eyes. He saw the Sea Child Heavenly Venerable form a hand seal and suddenly point at the light screen above. With that one point, a deafening boom erupted from the light screen. The countless tiny cracks on it suddenly expanded, and countless fragments wildly spiraled outward, releasing residual force that enveloped Wang Lin and the Sea Child Heavenly Venerable's bodies, forcefully pushing them outward. With this momentum, both Wang Lin and the Sea Child Heavenly Venerable turned into two long rainbows, shooting out as the light screen shattered. At the same time, the Sea Child Heavenly Venerable fully obeyed Wang Lin's previous instructions. With another hand seal, an oval seal appeared, glowing with the brilliance of over 90 divine abilities. The oval seal first crashed into the severed palm phantom that was hit by the shattered light screen. A thunderous boom rang out, shaking the very fabric of the void. The severed palm phantom staggered back, its body instantly disintegrating into a cluster of shadow points. But within moments, it began to condense again, reforming. At this moment, in the sky above the mountain and sea continent in the southern province, three figures hovered, gazing downward. Though they stood there, any cultivator approaching would never notice them, as neither divine sense nor the naked eye could detect their presence. Among these figures, one was a young man in a Taoist robe, his black hair cascading over his shoulders, his sword-like brows and starry eyes giving him the appearance of someone in his early 20s. Yet, his eyes, like the starry sky, would draw anyone who gazed into them into an endless trance. Though he appeared youthful, a profound sense of the passing years lingered in his demeanor. Calm and composed, the very air around him seemed to come to a complete standstill, as though all of creation was frozen in worship of him. He was the Tao-E Grand Heavenly Venerable. Beside him, a few meters away, stood a middle-aged man, his bones large and his height towering over the Tao-E Grand Heavenly Venerable by a full head. He wore a simple hemp robe, his hands clasped behind his back as he stood quietly. Bald and with a rough, unhandsome appearance, he exuded a feeling akin to confronting the very storm of the heavens. His eyes, which sometimes flashed with terrifying power, made the heavens themselves tremble beneath his feet. Anyone who focused on him would quickly forget everything else, unable to remember anything except his earth-shaking gaze. He exuded an imposing presence that felt like the extreme of the immortal Tao and the ultimate of martial arts. It was as though he had forged his path through martial prowess, shattered the immortal realm with his Tao, and opened up the world, stepping into the ranks of the Grand Heavenly Venerables. He was Wu Feng. Where Tao Yi's presence could halt all of creation, Wu Feng stood unaffected, his clothes seemingly fluttering as if a wind blew through them, showing that Tao Yi's aura had no power over him. Next to them, the third figure was an elderly man, dressed in a simple green robe. He stood calmly, his appearance unremarkable, his posture slightly hunched as if he were an ordinary cultivator. His face was lined with wrinkles, and his eyes lacked any sparkle, giving him a sickly, withered look. Yet, under the stillness that Tao Yi commanded, this elderly man seemed completely unaffected, as if he could not sense the awe-inspiring power surrounding him. "Jiudi, your disciple has escaped," Tao Yi said with a slight smile, glancing at the elderly man in green. Although this man appeared unremarkable, Tao Yi knew that Jiudi was the oldest among the 5 Grand Heavenly Venerables of the Immortal clan. It was said that he had been a cultivator during the time of the immortal progenitor. His original name was 9 Emperors, a name associated with immense grandeur, but after countless reincarnations, he succeeded in his 9th and final one, turning 9 into Jiu. "If it weren't for your wishes, my disciple would have escaped long ago," the elderly man in green replied calmly. "This matter has nothing to do with me. I have high hopes for Wang Lin. Dowie smiled and shook his head. I value him too, but his origins are still a mystery. This place's seal must test him, said Wu Feng, the Grand Heavenly Venerable of Martial Wei. Years ago, Xian Luo had come to the Immortal clan. As long as this person has no relation to Xian Luo, it will be fine. Dowie glanced at the sea of mountains and seas below. But suddenly, Dowie let out a soft hum. Not just him, even the Great Heavenly Venerable Wu Feng's gaze tightened, and the old man in the green robe also showed a hint of surprise. Below, the sea of mountains and seas was covered by a sheet of black ink. Beneath this black ink, in the deepest part of the boundless sea, there was a black hole. Inside the hole, at the location of the mountain and sea tree, intense rumbling sounds erupted from the tree trunk, which was sealed layer by layer. It was the Ocean Child Heavenly Venerable's attack. His oval seal collided with the phantom formed by the severed palm. After the phantom collapsed, Wang Lin raised his hands, and a manifestation of the heavenly bull soul appeared on his face, spreading across his body. His cultivation soared, and as he donned his soul armor, he unleashed his strongest divine art. There must be a great heavenly venerable outside, whether it's Wu Feng, Dao Yi, or even Judy. Since some of you want to see my origins, to see my strength, then I'll let you see it clearly. Wang Lin raised his right hand, and in the instant he charged forward, he suddenly swung his hand. In that swing, the void outside trembled. In the already pitch-black world, the sound of crashing waves rang out, and what appeared was a vast ocean of black night. On the horizon of this sea, a rising sun began to emit soft golden light, quickly rising. As the sun ascended, the golden light surged outward, rapidly spreading and tearing through the night. The dark sky instantly began to collapse layer by layer. Within the rising sun, a figure appeared. It was Wang Lin. He closed his eyes, and as the sun rose, with the golden light tearing apart the night, he suddenly opened his eyes. At the moment his eyes opened, the endless golden light radiating from the sun contained a trace of belief. This was Wang Lin's belief. It was this belief that turned the twilight divine ability into the divine message art. If you want to see, I'll show you. Wang Lin's eyes blazed with light. I believe that all darkness will dissipate. I believe that light will penetrate the night sky and shine upon the land. I believe that all who stand against me will vanish like clouds. As Wang Lin muttered, the golden sunlight expanded rapidly, tearing through the night and piercing the phantom formed by the severed palm. The phantom, which had just condensed, immediately shattered. Numerous shadow points scattered and dimmed, yet they didn't disappear. Instead, they began to condense again, even from afar. However, from the faint color of the phantom, it was clear that it had suffered injuries under Wang Lin's most powerful divine art. The golden sunlight continued to spread, stretching for miles. As it expanded, not only did it tear apart the night, but it also shattered the pitch-black void within the mountain and sea tree. In an instant, golden light emanated from the tree, as if there were suns within it. The sunlight spread out from the mountain and sea tree trunk, penetrating through the layers of seals, heading upward. Ignoring the black hole, the sunlight pierced through the bottom of the sea, and as soon as it touched the black water, the blackness quickly faded. It even penetrated the dark ink at the surface of the sea, rushing into the sky, where it illuminated Dao Yi, Wu Feng, and Judy's gazes. Divine message art, Dao Yi, the Great Heavenly Venerable, exclaimed as his eyes burst with brilliance. Such belief. Wu Feng, the Great Heavenly Venerable, narrowed his eyes, revealing a sharp edge. Only the old man in the green robe furrowed his brow, raised his right hand, and pointed at the sea below. The gesture was simple, with no trace of illusion, as if a mortal was casually pointing. As the sunlight pierced through the sea, a deafening roar erupted. The sea seemed to boil, churning violently, and unexpectedly formed a massive sea finger that pointed deep into the waters. Booming reverberated through the air. Wang Lin's body shot out from the sea without hesitation. As if he didn't even notice the three great heavenly venerables in the sky, he turned into a streak of light and sped away. Behind him, the Ocean Child Heavenly Venerable followed, but the sea turned into a vortex, and a huge severed palm roared as it reached for the sky. Just as it was about to grab him, the sea finger formed from the water suddenly struck out and collided with the severed palm. A tremendous explosion echoed, and the severed palm paused. The ocean child, heavenly venerable, turned pale and fled from the sea. Roar! The severed palm was forced down into the sea, but in that instant, a ferocious and terrifying aura rose. The palm transformed into a phantom, roaring as it faced the sky. Its eyes revealed madness, as it clearly saw Dao Yi and the other two in the sky. The palm, having spared the ocean child, heavenly venerable, charged directly at them. It seemed its majesty would not allow anyone to trample on it with a single finger. The old man in the green robe's eyes flashed, and he took a step forward, standing between the ocean child, heavenly venerable, and the severed palm. He raised his right hand. Master! The ocean child, heavenly venerable, glanced at the elder behind him. In silence, his gaze inevitably shifted toward the direction where Wang Lin had departed, his expression complex, letting out a soft sigh. It wasn't until he had left the mountain and sea continent that, on the mountain and sea border continent, amidst an ancient forest of evergreen pine trees, Wang Lin's figure blurred and appeared atop one of the towering pines. He turned back, casting a distant glance toward the far horizon. Earlier, using the Twilight Divine Message art, he had shattered and weakened the phantom of the severed palm without hesitation. Seizing the opportunity, he charged out of the sea, and just as he broke through the surface, he faintly sensed three powerful auras in the sky, each capable of oppressing heaven and earth. Based on his previous speculations, it wasn't hard to imagine who those three auras belonged to. Sitting cross-legged atop the ancient pine, Wang Lin took a deep breath. The vastness of the surrounding world felt much more comfortable than the protective light barrier he had been trapped in for years. There's definitely something hidden within that severed palm. This journey through the mountain and sea has brought me many gains. Apart from the mountain and sea tree spirit, the most important thing I've obtained is a fragment of the immortal extreme sword. Wang Lin's eyes flickered as his right hand rose, a brief flash of golden light shimmering in his palm. In the ocean child, heavenly venerable's protective light barrier, I couldn't absorb it openly. Now that I've escaped, I must quickly integrate this fragment into my sight. Wang Lin murmured, also considering the matter of the grand heavenly venerables. But since the three had watched him leave without stopping him, it was clear that he had passed their test. His body flickered, becoming blurry for a moment, and gradually, he melded with the ancient pine, vanishing without a trace. Inside the tree, Wang Lin sat cross-legged, taking out the final two mountain and sea tree spirits. In these past years, I've absorbed the other tree spirits. My wood origin power is now nearly perfected, and I can sense the wood essence throughout this world. Now, with these two left, I wonder if, after merging them, I can create the primordial origin avatar. However, the wood origin was a little strange. After integrating it into his body, the absorption process had slowed considerably. He wasn't sure when all of it would fully become part of his own origin. Holding the two tree spirits, Wang Lin pondered, then clenched his right hand. Immediately, both spirits merged into his body, and the slow process of absorption and refinement began. This isn't urgent. Refining will take some time. For now, I must focus on absorbing the immortal extreme sword fragment. Once that's done, I'll think about the next step. Wang Lin remained silent, flipping his hand. In his palm, the fragment of the immortal extreme sword, which he had risked his life to take from the mountain and sea tree's seal, radiated boundless golden light. The fragment was the size of a palm, its edges irregular, yet it emitted a sharp aura, as if capable of cleaving through heaven and earth. Staring at the fragment, golden light began to emanate from Wang Lin's eyes as well. Faintly, there seemed to be another fragment of the immortal extreme sword within his pupils. The golden light in his eyes and the golden glow of the fragment intersected in that instant, and a mysterious attraction spread from Wang Lin's heart. The summons he had felt outside the mountain and sea tree immediately echoed within his mind. As the summons and attraction grew stronger, the immortal extreme sword fragment in Wang Lin's hand seemed to melt into the golden light, transforming into countless golden threads. Like the fragment had dissolved, the golden thread shot toward Wang Lin's eyes. When the last golden thread entered his eyes, The golden light in the ancient pine tree vanished, leaving nothing but darkness. In this blackness, Wang Lin remained cross-legged, breathing calmly. Time slowly passed. The world outside shifted between night and day for 7 days. The pine forest, belonging to the autumn season, was filled with the sound of pine needles rustling in the wind, as if countless people were applauding. Leaves blew with the wind, scattering in all directions, resembling travelers who didn't know where they would settle next. During these 7 days, some cultivators passed through the forest, but never noticed that within one of the vast pines, a cultivator was hidden. For 7 days, Wang Lin remained motionless, yet beneath his eyelids, golden light surged. In his mind, those 7 days felt like countless years. Within his mind, 2 fragments of the immortal extreme sword were merging together. Both fragments were palm-sized, with irregular edges. But now, after these 7 days, these countless years, the 2 fragments had fully fused. As they merged, a golden sword, about a foot long, vividly took shape. The sword radiated sharpness and exuded an overwhelming pressure. After forming, it became even more solid in Wang Lin's mind. On the 8th day, Wang Lin's eyes suddenly snapped open, and in that instant, an overwhelming golden light burst forth from his pupils. This golden light carried several times the suppression force he had once wielded, condensed to the point of becoming tangible. It was like a sword tearing apart heaven and earth, flooding the ancient pine tree where Wang Lin sat in dazzling gold. But soon, the golden light radiating from his eyes began to retract, inch by inch. After several hours, it had fully condensed into his pupils, leaving not a trace escaping. His eyes appeared utterly clear, without the slightest anomaly. Yet within that clarity lay a sharp majesty. Anyone meeting his gaze would feel their soul thunder and retreat without a fight. This was the suppression force, the power to subdue all beings with the immortal extreme, sword of the immortal progenitor. Drawing in a deep breath, Wang Lin slowly closed his eyes, then opened them again after a long pause. Even the hidden sharpness and oppression had vanished, leaving behind only a faint aura of return to innocence. The immortal extreme sword, pinnacle of all metallic attributes under heaven and earth. I never imagined that after seizing and fusing this second fragment, the final of the 5 elements origin, metal origin, would awaken within me. Wang Lin's expression was calm. Though sudden, the 7 days of refinement had naturally brought him insight. 1 fragment equals years of absorbing the mountain and sea tree spirit. Raising his right hand, he swept it forward. 98 phantoms emerged, then fused with his hand before he clenched it into a fist. Crackling sounds echoed from his palm, clear, yet carrying a sense of annihilation. 9 black whirlwinds spiraled out from within his fist, each one holding the power of a fused body earth divine art. Before entering the mountain and sea, during his challenge in the heavenly venerable Nirvana grounds, he could already fuse 9 divine arts into a single strike. Now, as he stared at his fist, his gaze sharpened. With the echo of crackling, a 10th whirlwind roared into being, coiling around the other 9. There should be more than 10. He released his fist, then clenched again. A muffled boom resonated from his hand, and a moment later, the 11th whirlwind erupted forth. These 11 whirlwinds represented Wang Lin's strength even without revealing his true form and origin. With just a punch or a finger strike, he could unleash 11 divine arts. If he unfolded his true form and origins, that number would soar to 44. His 5 elements avatar doubled his power, the thunder avatar amplified it further, and though the void origin lacked a true form, it was inherently more elusive than the true origin. Especially after fusing his 3 void origins into one, his combat power had reached this astonishing height. This layering technique was something he had comprehended during his 50 years of trials, combining his avatar's nature with his own battle style. It should still be possible, Wang Lin murmured, raising his left hand and pressing it against his right. His entire body shuddered as a low growl escaped his throat. In that instant, a 12th whirlwind burst into life around his right fist, followed swiftly by a 13th. His breathing grew rapid. This was his limit. 13 divine arts. If I unfold my true form and origins, then even without the soul armor, I can stand against a heavenly supreme who commands 52 divine arts. I wonder, if I were to re-enter the heavenly venerable nirvana grounds, would I be able to pass the fifth layer? I should be able to. Wang Lin had resolved that when he challenged the heavenly venerable nirvana grounds again, it would be with a thunderous display that shook the world. To draw the gaze of all grand heavenly venerables. That will be the moment of my second trial. His eyes gleamed. But for now, I must return to the eastern continent, to the Donglin sect's Donglin pool, to see whether this pool differs from the one I encountered within the abode realm illusion. Rising to his feet, his gaze lit with brilliance. To the Donglin sect, then my second entry into the heavenly venerable nirvana grounds, to see how many layers I can overcome. Once I choose a grand heavenly venerable, my final destination on this immortal clan lands will be the central imperial city. Only after resolving the knot in my heart within the imperial city will I leave these lands and journey to the 36 prefectures of the ancient kingdom to find my master, grand heavenly venerable Xian Luo, and fulfill my promise. Taking a deep breath, Wang Lin's figure blurred and vanished from within the ancient pine tree. A streak of rainbow light shot across the heavens, racing toward the distant eastern continent. I can feel myself growing stronger, Xun'er. The day I become a grand heavenly venerable will be the day I personally bring you, my wife, back to life. That day is not far off. Very close, very close. Xun'er, it's so close. As Wang Lin raced through the landscape, rare tenderness shone in his eyes. Within that tenderness, there was remembrance, a series of moments not spent under moonlit flowers, but moments of unwavering dedication that had endured for thousands of years. The Great Sage Province was extremely remote, even more desolate than the heavenly bull continent had once been. Yet, for cultivators, this desolation was relative. The province was home to many mortals, and due to the fertile land, agriculture thrived here. As a result, the common people of the Great Sage Province enjoyed a life of relative prosperity. Moreover, due to the numerous tales of immortals passed down over countless years, the mortals here held a deep reverence for immortals. Most sought to find their own immortal fate. However, the immortal sects of the province were often secretive. The most prominent among them was Donglin's sect, the first sect of the province, which had become enshrouded in layers of mystery, making it all the more alluring to the mortals. Donglin's sect's mysteriousness stood out within the 9 sects and 13 schools of the eastern continent, where its disciples rarely left the sect, preferring to cultivate within its walls. The sky of the Great Sage Province was often filled with clouds, and it was rare to see an unbroken stretch of clear blue sky. For many years, this had been the case. The white clouds in the sky had become so familiar that if a day arrived with no clouds, the mortals might even find it strange. At this moment, outside the mortal capital of the Great Sage Province, nearly 100 people stood respectfully. Leading them were 3 or 4 elderly figures dressed in magnificent attire. These elders appeared frail but mustered all their strength to stand, supported by attendants, waiting for nearly 2 hours. The others stood with no sign of impatience, instead seeming to take pride in being able to wait. They gazed into the distance, eagerly anticipating the arrival of someone. However, as time dragged on, and another hour passed, under the scorching midday sun, the heat was unbearable. Even the wind carried waves of warmth. Some of the people couldn't endure the suffering. One middle-aged man, wearing an official robe, stood at the front with a pale face. He took the ice cubes handed to him by an attendant and placed them on his forehead, muttering softly, "Has the great immortal forgotten to come? We've been waiting here since dawn, and now it's already almost 3 hours. It's the hottest part of the day. How much longer must we wait?" "Shut up. Even if the great immortal doesn't come, it's still something we should accept. If you don't want to wait, no one is forcing you." The middle-aged man's words were overheard by one of the frail elders, who immediately turned and glared at him. The middle-aged man quickly put on a fawning smile, ready to explain. "Humph. The fact that the great immortal is coming to our humble place is due to me and a few friends begging for it for so long. Only after much pleading did the great immortal agree to show mercy and come here today. At my age, I'm here waiting without a hint of disrespect. You, a mere shopkeeper, if you anger the great immortal, your whole family will be kicked out of this city." The elder glared at the middle-aged man, his words harsh. The great immortal is kind-hearted. He doesn't hesitate to spend his precious time walking among us mortals. His name is Immortal, known to all. It's said that when he visited Lin Town, 7 children were chosen, though 3 were later returned, for entered the immortal sect. Once they ascend, even their chickens and dogs will rise to immortality. Listen, this is exactly what the immortal said. Once you ascend, even your chickens and dogs will rise. If my grandson could enter the immortal sect, I would sell everything I own to make it happen. Another elder spoke with yearning in his voice. That's right. Lin Townsley Yuan Y is a good friend of mine. The immortal once lived in his house and took an interest in his granddaughter. She was already in her 20s, and it was thought she would never enter the immortal sect. But because of Li Yuany's pleading, the immortal took her away too. I've also heard the immortal's words. Once you become immortal, even chickens and dogs will rise. This saying has been passed down throughout the Great Sage Province for decades. The crowd quickly erupted into excited chatter, envious of the blessed mortals who had caught the attention of the immortal. As the conversation continued, the scorching heat seemed forgotten. Suddenly, a gust of cool wind swept across the land. It blew through the group of 100 people, instantly cooling them, and they all turned to look in unison. In the distance, at the edge of the sky, a massive red umbrella unfurled, stretching for several dozen feet. Beneath it was a sedan chair woven from purple bamboo, carried by 4 towering figures in golden robes. They marched through the air, the wind swirling around them as they made their way toward the group. Outside the 4 burly men, there were more than a dozen young attendants, each holding a treasure vase, a whisk, or a glowing jade, surrounding them as they walked toward the center. At the very center, carried by the 4 burly men, sat an elderly figure on a sedan chair, with hair as white as snow. This elder exuded an air of immortal grace, and just a single glance revealed he was a true celestial being. Distinctly different from mortal men, he wore a white Taoist robe. Despite his snowy hair, his skin was as smooth as a newborn's. His eyes were narrowed, and a bright light emitted from his gaze. Immortal. Great immortal. It's golden immortal. Upon seeing this, nearly 100 people outside the city were stirred with excitement, their faces showing fervent reverence. The elderly figures, supported by attendants, immediately shoved their servants aside, fell to their knees, and began to worship. Within moments, everyone knelt, their voices raised in fervent worship toward the heavens. Golden immortal, help mortals ascend to immortality. Golden immortal, refine pills and cleanse the dust. Golden immortal, send children to immortality. The 4 burly men carrying the sedan chair halted in midair, all letting out a unified low roar. Their voices melded together as one, as if they had practiced this coordination countless times. The sound, combined with their imposing figures, reverberated like celestial music, spreading toward the ground. Golden immortal, immortal and eternal. Golden immortal, mountain of the heavens and earth. Golden immortal, the holy continent returns. After their low roar, the young attendants, each with a shrill voice, echoed in unison, their cries blending together and resounding throughout the heavens and earth. The elderly figure on the sedan chair wore a kind smile, yet there was a subtle aura of authority within it. He gazed down at the kneeling crowd, raised his right hand, and flicked his sleeve outward. With that flick, the world seemed to change. The skies darkened, clouds roared and swirled, and in an instant, the clouds parted, revealing a brilliant blue sky. The transformation of the sky left the mortals below dumbfounded, their hearts filled with awe and excitement. Approaching, the elderly figure on the sedan chair had a faint trace of satisfaction in his eyes, as though pleased with his appearance. He mused that, over the years, even true immortals had been fooled by him, and that he had deceived countless mortals. But though pleased, he knew he had to maintain the perfect facade. This was a strict self-demand. He raised his left hand and once again waved toward the sky. At once, a lavish palace appeared in the blue sky, seemingly materializing out of thin air. Although it was but a shadow, the reflection of sunlight and the backdrop of the blue sky made it appear as if it were a celestial palace. Within the palace, several immortal cranes soared into the sky, circling on the ethereal backdrop, sending gusts of fresh wind toward the earth. The people below were all captivated by the strange phenomenon in the sky. Since they were too far to discern, they could not notice the beads of sweat forming on the elderly figure's forehead. It was clear that this magnificent display, created by him, was also taxing on his energy. Once one becomes immortal, even dogs and chickens ascend to the heavens. At the pinnacle of the heavenly anomaly, the elder on the sedan chair stood up and waved his hands forward. A voice like thunder erupted from his mouth. As the sound reverberated, nearly all the mortals kneeling below, along with those in the city, eagerly followed the elder's words, excitedly muttering in unison. Once one becomes immortal, even dogs and chickens ascend to the heavens. Outside the city, as the sedan chair slowly descended to the ground, the white-haired elder stepped down with a smile. The kneeling figures ahead slowly rose, especially the few elderly men at the front, who repeatedly bowed in excitement. "Welcome, Golden Immortal. Welcome, Golden Immortal. All right, I am usually easygoing, so you need not go to such lengths. Time is limited, and I can only stay here for 3 days. Within these 3 days, bring your children to me, so I may examine them. If any possess immortal potential, they will come with me." The elderly figure smiled warmly, his voice gentle, but his every word carried an aura of celestial grace. Looking at the excited expressions before him, the elder had clearly grown accustomed to it. He smiled, feeling a trace of pride in his heart. "Think of my life. Since I was 6 or 7, I left the village and traveled, deceiving countless people along the way. And I, Golden Immortal, was born with extraordinary talents. Not only was I gifted in the art of deception, but I also trained myself in cultivation, without any sect affiliation, and truly attained immortality. A man like me is truly rare in this world. Still, thinking back, it was worth every ounce of effort to trick my way into being transported to the Great Sage Province. The people here are simple and pure, devoted to the pursuit of ascension to immortality, surely a paradise for someone like me. And best of all, no cultivator has ever set foot here before. I only had to spin one simple tale, that once one ascends to immortality, even chickens and dogs will rise to the heavens, and everything has gone smoothly ever since." Smiling, and accompanied by a respectful crowd outside the city, the white-haired old man stepped into the gates. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of miles away within the Great Sage Province, ripples stirred across the sky as Wang Lin's figure emerged. He glanced around, his eyes flashing. "So this is the Great Sage Province, the very land where the Donglin sect resides. That sect rarely allowed its disciples to travel abroad, which explained its mystery. A sect ranked among the 9 sects and 13 schools can hardly be ordinary. Even if they harbor heavenly supreme cultivators, it matters little." After a moment's thought, Wang Lin spread out his divine sense in all directions and was just about to follow the map toward the Donglin sect when he suddenly froze. From within a mortal city tens of thousands of miles away, his divine sense brushed against a familiar fluctuation. It was the same imprint he had once placed in the abode realm, sealing the reincarnations of countless souls. At great distance it was undetectable, but within reach, he could sense it clearly. Whose fluctuation is this? A smile spread across Wang Lin's face, tinged with expectation. He could not know which old acquaintance it belonged to. Just as years ago, outside the Earth Gate, he had sensed Zhou Yi and Qing Shuang in the same way. He could detect it, but unless he saw them with his own eyes, their identity would remain hidden. After all, the seals he had placed back then were uniform, with no distinction. Still, the possibility of meeting a familiar soul in this foreign land stirred a rare joy in his heart. His body flickered, and he abandoned his original plan to head for the Donglin sect. Instead, he streaked directly toward the mortal city. At his cultivation level, a distance of 10,000 miles was nothing. In an instant, he hovered above the city. As he descended, the fluctuation grew stronger. When his gaze fell upon the crowd at the city gates, and among them a white-haired old man with an immortal bearing and carefully hidden pride, Wang Lin's expression turned strange. The source of the fluctuation was none other than that old man. Wang Lin didn't even need the imprint signal. Just one glance at the familiar face was enough. Lu Jinbiao. Wang Lin's expression grew even more peculiar, a smile tugging at his lips. This Lu Jinbiao once comprehended the deception path on his own. I never expected that after reincarnation, he would continue walking this very road. With his insight and his familiarity with Lu Jinbiao, Wang Lin instantly discerned the man's purpose, surrounded as he was by nearly 100 mortals treating him with reverence. Seeing the pride Lu Jinbiao tried to hide and the deference of those around him, Wang Lin couldn't help but laugh, though part of it was a bitter, helpless smile. Deceiving mortals. In the abode realm, Lu Jinbiao was capable of deceiving cultivators. And now, here he is tricking ordinary people? He has genuine cultivation fluctuations. He's reached the golden core realm after all these years. With power like that, to waste it deceiving mortals, what is he thinking? Frowning, Wang Lin decided not to reveal himself or awaken Lu Jinbiao's past memories right away. Instead, he remained in the sky, watching to see how the man carried out his deception. With his concealment, few could ever notice him overhead. As Lu Jinbiao entered the city, he suddenly stiffened. His heart trembled, and a strange unease welled up inside him. It was a feeling he had never experienced before, as though it came from the depths of his soul. Warily, he glanced around and even looked up at the sky. He blinked in surprise. How strange. Why do I suddenly feel this way? It's as if I were a child who had just been caught misbehaving, standing before his stern father. Strange indeed. Frowning, Lu Jinbiao suppressed his doubts. Fortunately, the sensation lasted only a moment. Time passed quickly, and 3 days later, several of the city's respected families came forward, bringing their children to Lu Jinbiao. He examined each one with a kindly gaze. On the 4th day, he departed with 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls, the eldest 13, the youngest only 8. Amidst the reverent, excited send-off of the townsfolk, Lu Jinbiao sat in a sedan chair, while others carried the children, lifting them into the sky. Wang Lin had watched all of this over the past 3 days, his frown growing deeper and deeper. What exactly is Lu Jinbiao trying to do? He hasn't deceived anyone out of a single coin. He's only taken these 5 children, who can barely cultivate, and left. These 5 children may have some aptitude, but they're not good enough to be noticed by any immortal clan sect. If he has any ill intentions, I will not spare him. Wang Lin's expression remained calm, as he slowly followed Lu Jinbiao through the sky. Up above, Lu Jinbiao sat in the sedan chair, a pleased expression hiding in his eyes. He occasionally glanced at the 5 children, his eyes betraying a barely perceptible excitement. I didn't expect that this town would have 5 suitable candidates. Haha, this town looks good. I'll definitely make a profit. The 5 children grew nervous as his gaze swept over them, but at the same time, they held a glimmer of hope. They longed to enter the immortal gate and become immortals, a dream that not only belonged to them, but also to their parents and families. Several days later, outside a mountain range in the Great Sage Province, Lu Jinbiao's sedan chair came to a halt. He stood up with a stern expression and looked at his attendants. Wait here. I'll return shortly. The 4 burly men carrying the sedan and the surrounding young attendants all quickly acknowledged him. The 4 men were at the foundation establishment stage, and most of the attendants were at the qi refining stage, many of them having cultivated with the methods Lu Jinbiao had taught them. Lu Jinbiao's body swayed slightly as he, along with the 5 children, transformed into a gust of black wind, rushing toward the mountains. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared without a trace. Wang Lin, floating in midair, watched Lu Jinbiao's actions with a slightly grim expression before following suit. After a short while, the black wind Lu Jinbiao had become sped through the mountain range and suddenly took form in a secluded valley. The valley was not large, but it contained several caves, one of which Lu Jinbiao entered, sitting cross-legged as he motioned for the 5 children to sit opposite him. His gaze turned serious as he looked at the 5 children in front of him. The 5 children tensed immediately under his stare, their faces pale but holding their ground, not crying. Actually, I didn't tell the truth to your relatives before. Your talents are really quite ordinary. You can only cultivate a little. The reason I picked you 5 is because of your strong wills. Lu Jinbiao's voice was calm, but there was a slight intensity behind it. For cultivators, Talent may be mediocre, but having a strong heart is far more important. The 5 children looked at him nervously, silent. Also silent was Wang Lin, standing invisible nearby, watching Lu Jinbiao and waiting for him to continue. Lu Jinbiao, I can ignore it if you deceive cultivators, but if you deceive these children, that will truly disappoint me. Wang Lin silently thought to himself. I'm a liar. Lu Jinbiao suddenly spoke up. His words left the 5 children dumbstruck. Even Wang Lin was momentarily taken aback. I'm a liar. I deceived your relatives and brought you here. Lu Jinbiao's expression didn't change as he looked at the 5 children and slowly continued. His shocking revelation left the children in a daze, staring blankly at him. However, Lu Jinbiao smiled slightly, scanning them with his gaze. I can get you into the Great Sage sect, but it's up to you to decide. First, your talents can't pass the sect's tests. The sects won't take you as disciples. Though you have some aptitude, it's not enough for significant progress. Based on what I know of the Great Sage sect and the other sects, they won't take you in, nor will they waste their time on you. I'm not lying about that. Lu Jinbiao paused for a moment before continuing. Wang Lin, observing from the side, pondered over the words. He knew Lu Jinbiao wasn't lying. These children's talents really wouldn't be noticed by the Immortal Clan sections. But I have a way. A method to deceive the sects, to make your talents appear excellent, like deceiving heaven and crossing the ocean. But this method is fake. If you perform poorly in the sect and they investigate, your true abilities will be revealed. At that point, you won't be in life-threatening danger, nor will you be expelled, but you'll be relegated to the lowest rank. Lu Jinbiao continued, his voice calm as he looked at the 5 children. That's why I said, talent isn't important. What matters is having a strong heart. I, on the other hand, will help you get into the sect. The better your talents, the better the treatment you'll receive initially. With your talents, the items I can exchange for will be of better quality. But the more your talent stands out, the higher the risk of it being discovered. I will help you cross the ocean of deception and enter the Immortal Gate. What happens after that? All the opportunities and chances will depend on you. As for me, I'll take a small cut for my efforts. After all, that's only fair. You must think this through carefully. If you refuse, I'll erase this memory from you and send you back to your families. But if any of you agree, you may choose the aptitude with which you enter the sect, superior, high, or common. These are the 3 options. My advice is to choose the common aptitude. That alone is enough to step into the sect. After all, I intend to run this business for a long time, and I don't want to draw too much attention and end up hunted down. As Lu Jinbiao spoke, he lifted his right hand and slapped his waist. From his storage pouch, he pulled out some peanuts, cracked them open, and began to eat. Wang Lin watched the scene unfold, a bitter smile tugging at his lips. He thought to himself that Lu Jinbiao must have been a swindler in his past life. In this one, his tricks seemed even more refined. Among the 5 children, 3 were too frightened and chose to return home. But 1 boy and 1 girl stood firm. The girl chose the common aptitude, while the boy resolutely picked superior. At that choice, Lu Jinbiao gave the boy a long, deep look. He was the most gifted of the 5, with a remarkably determined heart. His family was nothing special, just ordinary folk, but by a twist of fate, he had caught Lu Jinbiao's eye. With a slight nod, Lu Jinbiao erased the memories of the 3 children who had refused. With a sweep of his wide sleeve, he cast them out of the abode realm, sending them to his attendants waiting in the mountains. Through a voice transmission, he instructed those attendants to escort the children back to their town and tell their families that they had failed to enter the sect.